Hi, how are you? I'm fine, thanks. How are you? These words suggest we actually care about the person we're asking, right? But really, they've become a longer way of saying hi. And fine, it's rarely what we're actually feeling, but it's often the easiest response. After all, we figure the person asking doesn't really want to know that I have a headache, or my mammogram came back suspicious and I'm terrified, or I'm still really angry at you about the fight you started. Especially not that one. So some of you may say, oh, but come on, saying I'm fine, that's just a social norm. Okay, but here's the thing. If we keep saying we're fine when we really aren't, we lose awareness of how we actually feel. And we create distance in relationships that matter. So think about it. How many times have you asked someone, how are you? And they say, fine. Yet there's that little voice of doubt in your mind. They don't really seem fine. Something's off. And then uncertainty and distance start to creep in. I spent a lot of years being inauthentic. Since I truly liked the guy that I was dating and I didn't want to risk being ostracized, I did whatever I needed to do to be the typical heterosexual girl. I wore dresses, and I kept my attraction to and relationships with girls a secret. I was convinced that the real me wasn't good enough. I seemed happy and excited when he talked about getting married. And from the outside, everything looked great. But as we got closer to getting married, I became more and more anxious. I started drinking more, and I had irritable bowels. My lack of authenticity was taking a toll on me. I was scared to speak my truth. How would he react? What would everyone else say? Ending that relationship was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Imagine starting that conversation. When I told him, he was hurt, he was sad, but he wasn't judgmental. It wasn't the catastrophe I'd imagined. Coming out wasn't my last struggle with being authentic. As I can attest, authenticity is lifelong work. My next big breakthrough was admitting that even though I had 2 doctorates and a successful psychotherapy practice, I wasn't happy. My work didn't fit me. So many of us go to work each day not really enjoying what we do, but we convince ourselves and each other that work is fine. Yet while we may be calmly fooling everyone on the outside, inside our bodies are going crazy. That's why the criminal justice system uses lie detector tests. When we aren't being truthful, we can appear calm and believable. But our body's changes in blood pressure, pulse, respiration, and perspiration reveal the truth. And researchers have found that deception is linked with increased cardiovascular stress, headaches, backaches, and other ailments. So, to avoid those things, I was challenged to recreate my work to fit me. I now work with living, breathing lie detectors. Horses. Equines are truth tellers. They are teachers of authenticity. To protect themselves from predators, horses have developed finely tuned senses, and they're experts at recognizing change in their environment. They pick up on things that we can't see, hear, or sense energetically, and they tune into the slightest changes in our physiological states, like heart rate and muscle tension. They know when what we're presenting on the outside doesn't match what's really going on inside, and they call us out. For instance, Cosmo here, when he senses incongruence, he will pin his ears and swish his tail. Or he might just walk away from you. Cooper will plant his feet and refuse to walk with you. And Lucius, he will push you all around the arena or box you in against a fence. Recently, I worked with a woman named Jenny. She was attractive, outgoing, enjoyable. Yet her dating life wasn't what she wanted it to be. Men would ask her out and then lose interest after a few months. So in one session, Jenny was easily leading Cooper all around the arena, no problem. Then, just as she started to take him through an obstacle course that represented navigating the challenges of relationships, Cooper planted his feet and refused to move. I asked Jenny to pause and check in with herself about how she really felt about going through it. Just as she smiled and said, "I feel fine," Cooper took 2 steps back. I said, really? Jenny said, "Really, I feel good about it. I want to do it." In response, Cooper dramatically backed away from her, as far as he could go, stretching the lead rope taut. He was calling her out. He was telling her, saying you're feeling really good is total BS. Jenny didn't get it at first. She wasn't consciously being inauthentic. As we talked about what was happening, Jenny tearfully realized that she'd been putting on a happy face and feeling fine for decades because she believed that if anyone really knew her, they wouldn't want to be with her. Just as she shared these feelings, Cooper walked right up next to her. She was being authentic, and he wanted to be close to her. Realizing this inner truth created a huge shift for Jenny. She started working on what it meant to be Jenny, and it turns out that Jenny was someone who could be playful, insecure, angry, sad, and sometimes really good. When she shifted from being happy Jenny to being Jenny, she no longer had to expend all that energy keeping up a facade. She became more interesting to people, and she had more bandwidth to truly be interested in others. It's not surprising that researchers have found that authenticity is correlated with physical and mental well-being. The more authentic someone is, the greater their self-esteem, the less stress and anxiety they have, and the more successful they are in achieving life and relationship goals. So, the first step to feeling better and having better, more fulfilling relationships is connecting with our authentic self. How do you find your authentic self? I recommend horses. But since not everyone has a horse, there are a lot of things you can do without horses. So let's think back to the horses in the arena and how that parallels life. Consider, where do you get stuck? Where are you being pushed around, dragged around, or boxed in? Or walked away from when you really want to connect? These things happen when we aren't being authentic. When you don't have a horse to call you out, you have to really listen to yourself. We all have an authentic inner voice. We just grow accustomed to not listening to it. If you're getting stomach aches, headaches, not sleeping well, or picking fights with your spouse, consider that it might be your authentic inner voice desperately trying to get your attention. Our authentic inner voice is a deep knowing. It's free of emotional highs and lows. It's not a critical voice. It doesn't tell us that we're not good enough, nor does it tell us that we're awesome and better than everyone else. It gives us information so we can discern how we want to conduct ourselves. It tells us the difference between excitement about an opportunity and dread about something that is not a good idea. You know that, I should have, you fill in the blank? That's remorse for not listening to our authentic inner voice. Our authentic inner voice literally feels right in our gut. That gut feeling is not just metaphorical. Our gut has been called the second brain because it contains about 100 million neurons that give us feedback about how we're feeling. We just need to pause and listen. Instead of drowning out our inner knowing with fine or other words that don't really represent how we feel or what we believe, we can be more introspective. We can ask ourselves, how do I feel, really? What do I really believe? It takes practice. Authenticity is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. We can start with our standard social greeting. Maybe in some cases, we should just say hi. Maybe in others, when we say hi, how are you? We should slow down and make sure the person we're greeting knows that we really want to know how they are. And when we're greeted with hi, how are you? We should ask ourselves if fine is the best answer. Is there a better answer that will bring us closer together? Thank you.